Thank you so much. So we now move to our last paper speaker for the evening, and closing the case tonight for the opposition is Mr. Theo Langslow. Theo is a third-year undergraduate reading philosophy at St. John's College. He won the right to speak through open audition. Theo, you have the floor.
Thank you all for coming. It's an honor to be invited to speak here. Tonight, I will not be denying that there are dark and dangerous aspects to the behaviors, traits, and roles that we call masculinity. But I believe this to be true of many things in life. Consider even the virtue of being kind. A person who is too kind gives too much to others and risks allowing themselves to be taken advantage of. Too much of anything is bad, and this is indeed also the case with masculinity. However, I believe this is unfair to reduce masculinity to its negative features, something that happens far too often in today's world. Therefore, I believe it is wrong to say that masculinity has failed men, when masculinity as a whole has a lot to offer both to men and wider society. In the next 10 minutes, I will be examining the perceptions we have about masculinity, the harmful effects on men of these perceptions, and the need for everyone to embrace a balance of the masculine and the feminine. I hope to persuade you that the motion of the House tonight is quite wrong, that you should abandon any preconceived notions of what masculinity is, and that you should vote in favour of the opposition. I would like to start by suggesting that it is not masculinity that has failed men, but society's perception of masculinity. Now, I am not personally your typical macho, masculine man. I spent my childhood dressing up as a princess with my sister. I hated sport of any kind. Most of my school friends were girls, and I was extremely shy and unassertive. However, as I moved up to sixth form college and then to Cambridge University, a period of my life that is sadly soon to be ending, I found great value in discovering a more masculine side to myself. Now, by this, I don't mean mojo dojo casa houses. I don't mean speaking over women. I don't mean being an arrogant show-off. And I certainly don't mean being a toxic bully. These sorts of things have become so strongly associated with masculinity today. However, in my mind, that is not masculinity at all. Or at least, it is masculinity gone very, very wrong. What comes to mind when I think of masculinity are things like having a duty and responsibility to others, to my family now, and in my aspirations to be a father and a husband in the future. A sense of brotherhood with my friends, male or female, and a thirst for aggressive but fair competition in my sport of rowing. It's certainly true that this extreme side to masculinity exists, and that we must not ignore it, just as there is a dark side to every idea or way of being. However, it is sad to me that masculinity as a whole has become synonymous with these harmful extremes. I believe encouraging a good balance of traits, including both the feminine and the masculine, may actually be the very antidote to toxic masculinity that we need. It is therefore not masculinity that has failed men, but the portrayal of masculinity in today's society. Following on from this, I would like to point out the specific harms that this perception of masculinity has had and continues to have on men. A 2023 study of men in the UK and Germany by the Centre for Male Psychology showed that men who associated masculinity with positive things, like being a protector and a strong support for their families, had far more positive mental health. This included greater happiness, confidence, and motivation in their lives. Clearly, many men need to be needed in that very masculine way. They need someone to care for. They need a career ambition to strive for. They need a sports match to win. I do not doubt that this is true of many women too. But by society portraying masculinity as necessarily dangerous and bad, men's mental health is suffering. The same study also showed that especially the younger generations of men were more likely to associate masculinity with negative things, such as violence towards women. These men tended to view their lives as unhappy, unstable, and out of control. As one psychologist has said, toxic masculinity is toxic terminology. If society perpetuates this extreme idea of masculinity, as being equivalent to masculinity as a whole, men will internalize this. Sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, sorry, just so I don't lose the flow of my speech. I agree with you. I'm gonna move on to that. I do encourage people to not be tied down by expectations of being masculine and feminine, and encourage people to embrace a range of traits. But I will get onto that. Thank you. This detrimental effect of this on men's mental health actually makes them more likely to act out in the very toxic behaviors we are seeking to avoid. With men making up 80% of suicides, and men generally reporting lower life satisfaction than women, the route we are going down needs to stop. If we want to encourage men away from unacceptable behavior and to improve men's mental health, the answer is not the denigration of masculinity. The answer instead is to suggest ways in which masculinity is and can be a positive force for all, and to emphasize the importance of good masculine role models for young people regardless of gender. I'm thinking people like The Rock, Mo Farah, Barack Obama, and Ryan Reynolds. All of these figures are undoubtedly masculine, and yet not in that insecure, abrasive, and toxic way. They are fair and competent leaders in their fields, and, above all, decent and caring people. These people, as well as the good role models in our personal circles, should be the people that children look towards when they learn about masculinity. It is a famous saying that I think this house represents well, that rather than banning speech, good speech is needed to tackle bad speech. In much the same way, good masculinity is needed to tackle bad masculinity. And we abandon masculinity as a whole at our peril. For my final argument, I would like to suggest that not only has masculinity not failed men, but masculine traits are necessary not only for men, but for anyone who wishes to be a well-rounded person. I will use as an example someone you may not expect, my late mum. She was a housewife and a mother first and foremost in that very traditional sense. If I described her to you solely on that basis, you may think she was the most typically feminine person possible. Not so. My mother was in fact one of the best masculine role models I had growing up. She had a fiery, no-nonsense personality and didn't let anyone, man or woman, get away with anything she didn't like. She had strong ambitions to succeed that her grandmother, even her mother before her, would not have had access to, rowing in the Oxford Blue Boat and achieving a doctorate in social anthropology. She was disagreeable and tough, especially in her decision to be a housewife and a mum. A decision perhaps surprising, considering her strong personality. What my mum taught me most of all is that it's okay to play whatever role you want to in life, regardless of your gender. It's okay and good for a woman to fight her way to the top of a company. It's okay and good for a man to want to be a dad. And having that balance of masculine and feminine traits basically makes a person unstoppable. Masculinity thus has not failed men, but embracing a balance of the masculine and the feminine is necessary and useful for all in society. So, I encourage 4 things from this house. Firstly, I encourage you to think of the ways that society has misportrayed masculinity as something to be, as something to be derided and feared, and to be mindful of all the ways that masculinity is in fact good for society. Secondly, I encourage you to think of the masculine role models in your life, whatever gender they are. Consider what you have learnt from them and how those lessons might play a role in combating the toxic behaviors exhibited by too many men today. Thirdly, I encourage you to explore that side of yourself that you may have ignored. For all those macho, masculine people out there, watch a rom-com. For those more feminine souls, find your aggressive side through a sport. Discovering new traits within ourselves is useful for us all, with the added benefit of helping us to understand those who are different from us. And finally, if you agree with what you've heard from this side, I encourage you to step through the opposition door. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Theo. And with that tonight, our debate tonight concludes. So a couple of notices from me before we go to vote. Firstly, if you look on your order papers, you'll see a QR code. That takes you to a membership survey we're doing. So if you have any feedback on the way that we do things, we really encourage you to fill that out. Secondly, we have an outdoor flea market on Saturday from 11 to 4, so please do come along to that. Next week, we'll be hearing from the co-founder of PayPal, Peter Thiel, on Wednesday. And very last, if you didn't win the free garden party ticket tonight, you can still purchase tickets for our summer garden party. It'll be on the 15th of June, and do check that out on our website and socials. Tickets are only £40 for members. We now move to vote. Could the tellers please take their positions? So as you know, in this house, we vote with our feet, eyes to the right, nose to the left, and abstentions right down the middle. The results will be announced in the bar afterwards, and we'll also be serving some free chips and special debate night cocktails, so do continue the debate tonight in the bar. Could we please end with one last round of applause for all those who contributed this night?